Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. I am a fan of the original, like us all. If you're a horror lover, this is bound to be stuck in a nostalgic box for you, and it's time to break it out because we're finally getting a Beetlejuice sequel. I know a lot of people are very touchy, but I'm telling you, this looks good. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, the sequel, takes place after a family tragedy where 3 generations of the Dietz family return home to Winter River. And still haunted by Beetlejuice, Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter gets involved. Why should you be excited? Well, this sequel, the idea for this sequel has been in the works forever. Winona Ryder said that she would only sign on for Stranger Things if this sequel ever got off the ground, she could still go and take the time to film it. Tim Burton said he wouldn't do a sequel unless Michael Keaton came back for Beetlejuice, and also he was adamant that this would not be technologically modern. It's back to the practical effects which made the first film so special and so strange. I myself am strange and unusual, and I'm sure you are too, so I hope you guys are as excited as I am. Jenna Ortega is in this film, Catherine O'Hara's back, and this one also has Willem Dafoe. Are we getting excited? Because I definitely am, and I'm heading off to the local premiere of this film, which is just down the street from me, so I'm gonna walk today and take you guys along with me. Beetlejuice is not my favorite character in this film. Actually, Gina Davis was, and I'm sad I don't think she's in this film. Don't get me wrong, Michael Keaton is great in this role, but he's only Beetlejuice for 14 minutes in the original film. So I'm excited to see this spin and see if he actually is a little bit more front and center stage. Let's go check out Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice and see whether it's worth the hype. Hi guys, I just got back. It was raining and it was crowded, so obviously I was not going to do my reaction straight away, but I've just walked in the door and I have to say, I am a little bit let down. I did not expect that. I feel like I went in with good expectations. I wasn't expecting anything crazy. Probably the best way I can put it is that was very strange and unusual, which is what the intent was, but in a different way than I felt the original was. So this film has several different focuses, and I don't think that's a bad thing. The original Beetlejuice was also about a couple and then a new family, and then of course Beetlejuice. It was split. As I said, Beetlejuice was only in the original for 14 minutes. So it was a little bit of everything, which is the erratic nature, the mind of Tim Burton, makes sense. There's a lot of different characters, especially in the underworld. But in this film, there was so much going on above ground at the start. It felt like it just took forever for it to get into its flow, into the chaoticness that we love. And it just took a long time for them to set up the story. I would say almost half the film I was waiting to get to the good stuff. And Beetlejuice does come in earlier in this film, and he is around for a lot of the film. And surprisingly, he was my favorite part of this film because in all of his scenes, we saw that practical and over-the-top crazy Tim Burton aesthetic, and it was kind of like that slapstick, which usually I don't love, but that's what you love about the original. It's crazy, and it's a little bit cuckoo. So I do think that there was some funny moments within his role, and don't get me wrong, I thought that there were some funny moments, especially with Catherine O'Hara, but it just really had such a strange focus and such a split focus. I felt like it took a while for it to get into the flow, and even if the flow is erratic, it just felt off. In saying all of that, the second half of this film is great. It's just the first half. The second half, once it gets into it, it is exactly what I hoped it would be. The theatrics, the practical effects, all of the strangeness. It has some really funny moments, some really dark moments, and it crosses those lines, which I like. But I am actually surprised in how much practical effects there were. Again, the second half, there's a couple of scenes that are fantastic. There's one scene, which I think is going to be everyone's favorite, that really brought in that theatrical element, and it just felt like old school cinema. I loved it, absolutely loved it, and it's worth seeing on the big screen. If you are going to see it, it's worth seeing it on the big screen just for that scene alone. It was fantastic. But I was really taken back by how much I had heard that they were focusing on practical effects, because although I know films today don't use that, I really thought there was going to be some more practical effects or more in the old stylization than there was. There are some really cool surprises in this film. I'm really glad that I didn't know too much going in because of one of the first scenes in it. But also, to balance that out, there are a lot of holes in this film. And I'm going to speak on them at the very end after I give my score. I'm going to do a little spoiler thing. I normally don't do that on my main channel. Sometimes I keep that for my Patreon, but I'm just going to do it in today's video because there's not much I want to say, but I do want to point out some stuff, but I'll talk about this later. But I did find that there were some plot holes or just some unanswered questions that really bugged me about this film. And if we're meant to be revisiting this old movie in a new light, I felt like we should have got some better answers. This was a really weird film because I thought it was going to give complete fan service and maybe be a copy, you know, kind of do the Ghostbusters thing where it copies the original structure, but this one really doesn't. It does its own thing, which I enjoy. And I do think that that is a good thing in one regard, but it does feel like a completely different stylization in the first half. I also thought the music was a really interesting aspect because that's a huge thing in especially the nostalgic element of revisiting these kinds of movies, especially Beetlejuice, which is an 80s film. It's surrounded by these classic, it's Danny Elfman music, sound bed, and then some very famous musical scenes. And they definitely utilize that in its own way, but they also add in some odd choices. They have they have this scene with Sigur Rós playing, and if you know anything about Sigur Rós in a movie, you know you're gonna cry. It doesn't quite work in this one. It's just a very strange music choice. Sigur Rós are one of my favorite bands. I've seen them live. I've been a fan since I was like 18, but I just did not expect to hear them in a Beetlejuice movie. Very odd. Overall, I enjoyed the second half of this film, but I did feel like the first half was a fever dream. And I think that they could just cut like 20 minutes off the start. I felt like they gave a whole elaborate backstory instead of diving straight in, which the first one does really well. I would say the exposition in this film is very poorly put together. And I really felt like it could have started at a pivotal point instead of this whole back and forth that really felt like it dragged me out. And the whole point is it's meant to be strange and unusual. You don't have to over-explain things. I do think that there's things missing, which we'll get to, but I just felt it was just strange and unusual, but not in the way I wanted. Overall, loved the way this film looked, especially the underworld scenes. Perfection. One scene in this I just loved. It was everything I want. Theatrical, beautiful, everything. Performances were great. I just did not love the script, especially what journey it took to finally get to a place where I felt it was in its erratic, true form. When it got there, loved it. Before that, I don't know. It's worth hanging out for though. I think it's still worth hanging out for. But I do think you'd probably get a better payoff from watching the first one or rewatching the first one if you haven't seen it before. It's an extension of the first one, but it is its own thing. But I think you have to rely on the knowledge of, you know, Beetlejuice and who he was and how he's introduced to you in the first film for this film to really make a mark. I'm gonna give this one a 6 out of 10. I really loved the second half, but God, it took a while. It took a while to get there. For scare, I mean, there were some gross things for sure, but it's funny, you know what I mean? So probably like a 2, and for originality, I'm gonna give it a 6 actually. I do think it took a weird a weird journey. So I guess that is unique. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys being here. Don't forget, I did a what is streaming this month new horror movie video that is up now, but I'm gonna get into a little bit of spoilers. Not really intense spoilers, but spoilers that I need to say. Just 2 points I really want to talk about quickly. The whole premise that Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin's characters are just not a thing anymore is so wild in this film. So they really get one line that writes off their total existence. I really hated that. That really hurt my soul because they're my favorite part, especially Geena Davis, of the original. So basically Lydia says that they found a loophole and they're free now. And what annoys me so much about this part is because this movie is about Jenna Ortega's character and Winona Ryder's character being mother and daughter and their relationship. And in the original Beetlejuice, Lydia, Winona Ryder's character, did not have a good relationship with her parents, and she ends up being kind of parented by these ghosts at the end of the first film. And so it means a lot, those characters. And then it's so strange because in this film, she has an estranged relationship with her daughter. So it made no sense to me why, for her character, why she would be estranged from her daughter if in the past she had gone through the same thing. And it just didn't make sense for the growth of her character. I didn't like how they were written off so easily, especially two actors that are still, they're still kicking. I don't like that. I was really hoping they were going to show up, and that really hurt me because I'm so emotional, so dramatic. If it did, because they were my favorite part of the original, and it's really sad because it all becomes about Michael Keaton when, again, he was only in 14 minutes of the original. So that part I was let down by. This next one is more of a spoiler. So really, you probably should see the film before you see the next one. Sayonara, if you're logging off now, I appreciate you. This next one really bothered me. The father of Astrid, which is Jenna Ortega's father, he has died before the film, and Winona Ryder's character, Lydia, says, I don't know why, obviously she can talk to ghosts, but she can't talk to him. They see him later in the film, and she does. They don't explain why they couldn't talk. He says, I visit you guys and look over you, but you guys don't see me. I don't understand why they did this whole throwaway line about how she can't see him, and they make it a huge thing. I just don't get that. It just felt like they intentionally put a plot hole in there. Like, not a plot hole, more so something that just was a non-answer about a problem they created. They could have said something like, I thought I saw him once, or I just can't connect to him. Not like I can't see him purposely. And then he brings it up again. And even Jenna Ortega's character talks about it at another point. She's really mad at her mum about it. Why did they not ask him when they finally see him? Why are we posing questions to the audience that we're not going to answer? But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. As I said before, I have a what's coming to streaming this month, in the month of September. If you'd like to check that out, there's a lot in there, a lot. So there's going to be something for everybody. Check it out, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye.